Yeah, thank you so much, Mridula. Thanks for being with us, and the platform is yours.
Yeah, all right. So today I'll be taking you guys through the entire concept of living zero waste. You might have heard of this term here and there, and you might have seen a few practices. But by the end of today's webinar, I'm hoping you guys will be able to identify the difference between a single use, linear problem, and how to come up with a circular economic idea of a product that can work as a solution for that problem. So problem solving in the zero waste mindset is something you'll be able to do at the end of this webinar. All right. Let me share my screen. Can everybody see this? Yeah. All right. So starting with understanding circular economy. Now, I'm not an economic expert myself, but this is everything that I have understood by living zero waste and actually living the application of circular economy that I can explain to you. So how I discovered the zero waste movement was when I watched a video about a woman who was able to store 5 years of her family's trash into one mason jar. And she was able to do it for year after year once she had figured out how to live zero waste. So she wrote the first book about it. And we were then, as a culture, as a consumer culture, we were introduced to the concept that waste would not exist if it wasn't even produced in the first place. So creating waste is something that is very specific to human beings. If you see any other species in the nature, they do not have a concept of waste. They do not need dustbins for their lifestyle. We are the only species who create waste, right? So why is this happening? um, this was some of the articles that I came across, after I discovered zero waste movement, that it was actually growing among more and more people in India. So then I started joining that, and I created my own online platform to disseminate this information as well. So why are we as human species creating so much waste? Because we have been living in something called the linear economy world in the past 50 to 60 years. Now, before this, we were living originally our rural culture, and our natural way of living, the agricultural lifestyle, was a circular economic lifestyle already. But we moved on to urban lifestyles. We moved on to imitate developed countries, and what we essentially adopted was a linear economy world where products were made, designed, such that you could use it once and you just throw it away, right? So that created a lot of convenience, a lot of germophobes, and hygiene concerns were addressed because of this. And we never thought about what would happen once it's thrown away, because everything we kept designing was designed to throw away. Everything had a packet on top, some kind of trash layer packaging on top, which we open and throw. So we never thought about what would be the result of that. Now zero waste is essentially understanding that as a problem, because obviously there's finite amount of land. We all live on it, we all have houses on it, or we are growing food from it. We can't keep throwing trash because we'll run out of land space. So it's not a sensible long term solution. So circular economy is basically making sure every time you design any product, every time you think about putting up any system, you have to think of the end of life of the product as well. What will happen once it's thrown away? Where does that go? Does that come back into the system? Can we make the same packaging reusable again and again? So this is a circular economic model where you think about the end of life of every product. So linear economy was very convenient in the last 50 to 70 years, because we had ample of natural resources. We kept mining them, we made our products, and we threw them away. Now we are encroaching a day. Obviously, it said urban development, it promised convenience, it promised economic prosperity. But now we have approached a day where these things have led to some negative consequences as well, because we didn't plan long term, as you can see in this slide. So the pollution, droughts, and plastic choking everywhere. We didn't think about where the plastic would go. So what has changed now is that we understand the consequence before we design any product. We are beginning to understand how this will impact our oceans, our lifestyle, our health, etc. Hence, circular economy has taken a center stage. You guys have obviously been doing this program now, so you will learn more about that. So the end product, in my opinion, in circular economy should be anything that's reusable, that can be reused endlessly without the materials getting damaged, or it's 100% recyclable. If even if we use something like plastic, we should have a material that can be used again and again. Even if you melt it down and make another product, you should be able to use that same material for forever, which is not the case in plastic. Plastic downgrades over time. Or it should be organically compostable, such that we can rot it in our own compost backyards, or if you just put it in the mud, it will compost. So in today's exercise, I will be making sure you guys are able to identify objects around you, and think of a circular economy solution, right? So whatever you see on the table next to you or wherever you're sitting, think of the items around you and think about where they fall. Do they fall in linear economy? That means, was this pen designed so that after I'm done using it, something had to be thrown away? Or is it designed in such a way that nothing is being thrown away and it's resources are in the system, right? So I just explain this. Find a solution that fits the circular system. Identify products and services you're using right now, and figure out how it works. The first example is disposable razor blades. Now at this point, I want you guys to interrupt me if you want to ask something, if you have any questions. This will be an interactive session. So if you have any questions so far, you can ask me. All right. So I'll be moving on. So one example is disposable razor blades that we're using, right? It's not just that it's made of plastic. Plastic is actually of a much lower concern than the way the plastic is being used, right? Here, even though we know plastic does not biodegrade, we are using it for a product and we're calling it disposable, which means the consumer is going to buy it and throw it away. So what is the point of making it out of plastic? We could have made it out of something else. If you really want to make something disposable, make it out of a natural material, or else you make it out of steel, or you create a machine which can be charged on a battery and that can be used forever. So reusable shaving accessories would be a better option than a disposable razor blade. That's an example of linear versus circular. Same thing goes for plastic toothbrush. A lot of you must have heard of products like bamboo toothbrush now that's coming out. It's slightly expensive because the demand is very low. But if we start opting for that, because we know toothbrush is something we have to throw away, so at least can we make it out of natural material so that it goes back into the earth, and the earth region.
Can I ask you a question here? So regarding the bamboo brushes, the bristles are not recyclable.
Bristles are still plastic, right? Yes. The bristles.
Yeah. So I mean, so if
many brands. That does not have a solution. So I think here, for the sake of putting an example, I've put it over here. But what the only improvement in bamboo toothbrush that has happened is the fact that the volume of plastic we are throwing away has, instead of the entire handle and the bristles, now at least the handle is taken care of, and then we can focus on innovating for the bristles. Some brands claim that they have cornstarch plastic bristles, but there's no way of testing or checking it. So that's why I don't tell people this is 100% biodegradable. All right. Yeah, so the objective is to reduce that plastic volume as much as possible. This is for example's sake I've put, but let's imagine even the bristles were biodegradable for this presentation's example. Similar in toothpaste, let's say toothpaste. How are we selling it as a product? We're selling it in plastic tubes which can't even be refilled if we want to reuse the packaging. And those things are multi-layered plastic. So there's aluminum layer, plastic layer, and aluminum layer in the tubes. This cannot be recycled. No recycler will accept it. So why are we designing something that cannot be managed? So toothpaste, tubes are a terrible example. They're the perfect linear economy example. And if you had the same product being sold in a reusable box, let's say a glass jar, let's say a tin box, or some material which recyclers will accept, then that is a better example of a product design. Disposable cups versus reusable cups. Do we need to have paper cups which are lined? Paper does not biodegrade in here because it's been lined with plastic. So we have to remember that. A lot of us are under the impression that paper cups are fine, but it's not. So instead of that, can we have a reusable cup instead, which if we as consumers carried around, and we could just, fill our order in that, have it, rinse it and keep it inside again. So that was something I used to do whenever I went out spontaneously in my day. And if I wanted to have a juice, I would use my cup only. And that helped me reduce the waste that would be caused because of me. Again, same story for reusable plates versus disposable plates. Instead of accepting it in sachets, we can, invest in a glass jar bottle of ketchup, and we can keep it in our kitchens. That is another example. Very, very simple thing. We never thought about it. Now that you start thinking about it, you realize how many things are there in your daily life. Reusable straw. This was the first thing that got popular. And due to the PR of the straw was so strong, a lot of people ended up thinking this is the only change you need to make and you've done a good job, but that's not true. It was a metaphor for an example of a very mundane object in our life, and we should look around for other examples as well. Balloons. Have you ever thought about the fact that balloons are single use? What happens to the balloons after they're, burst? We have no idea. It goes into the oceans. It, chokes some drain pipe that we don't want choked. What can we do instead? We use decorations that can be wrapped up, kept inside, and used for another event again. So that is another example. So here I want to open up the webinar for you guys to ask any questions that you want to ask again. Because I'm done with the examples portion.
Yeah, Mridula, I would like to ask you one thing. You mentioned about the toothbrush, right? The bristles are made up of plastic, but there are few toothbrushes which are available in the market which says that they are made up of charcoal. They are made up of charcoal bristles.
Charcoal infused. They're misleading. They are charcoal infused, but the bristles are still plastic.
Okay.
Yeah, there's no bristles that have been made out of 100% charcoal yet.
So there's no bamboo fiber, there's no charcoal bristles, there's nothing like that. It has plastic in it.
Some brands are claiming that their bristles are bamboo fiber.
Okay.
But yeah, there's no guarantee for that. If you try to compost it at home, you will find out.
Yeah, true.
Yeah. So what you need to do is you need to pluck it out. You take a plier and you just pluck out the bristles. And if you want to test whether they're compostable or not, I actually recommend doing it at home, because otherwise brands can get away with anything by calling it biodegradable. And cornstarch plastic looks very similar to the real plastic as well.
True.
So the scam is quite real.
True. And one more thing you mentioned about the toothpaste as well, but there are very, very few. I don't think any brands which are there which sell the toothpaste in the instead of the tubes. They sell it.
Do you guys remember Colgate tooth powder, the white tooth
powder?
Yeah,
the powder, right?
Yeah.
True.
So that still comes in tin packaging. It's hard to find because the demand reduced, because they made all these fancy tooth later on, like a million flavors, but that tin packaging has reduced in manufacturing because the demand reduced for it. So whenever I find that product on a shelf, and I think it's still available online, I buy everything that I can find. That's hard to find. And another thing you can try is you can go for herbal tooth powder. So again, like I said, the plastic is not your enemy. The way plastic is being used, you have to look at it. If it comes in a plastic box that has a nice lid that you can open, close, you can reuse the box for spices in your kitchen rack later. If you can find such a packaging also, that is also a much better option than buying a tube.
Okay.
So, your Dabur herbal, I think Vico turmeric had tooth powder. So those things are also products you can try.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Can you hear me?
Hello?
Yeah, Mridula, this is Nikhil. You can hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Yeah. So it's just a few months back when I stopped using pens, not literally, I reduced using pens. I bought a pen tablet for myself. Now, this pen tablet itself is made of plastic per se.
Yeah, so plastic is not the
Yeah, that's right. So how do you think that goes on? Like, use of pen tablets will be a good thing that we can look forward to?
I think use of pen tablets is basically saying digitization of you know.
Right.
Because the time plastic was being sold in the 70s by saying it's good for the environment because you don't have to cut down trees for paper.
Right.
Right. So that logic was used to push plastic's agenda, and now that logic is being used to bring it down. So what I think about hard plastic, the kind of plastic that is used to make gadgets, is it's recyclable, not perfect, but it is recyclable several times. And gadgets and essential equipment products, construction products, these are the only places where plastic is actually makes sense, because it will protect your gadget for a long time. It will keep things durable.
Right.
So durability becomes a much higher factor in sustainability over there, right?
Okay.
In that way, yes, your pen tablet investment has been good, and that's not a very long-term problem. We need to think more about the things that we are disposing of very quickly, day-to-day items. Within a week, we are throwing something away. You have to look into your dustbin. The things you're usually throwing, you're not throwing your pen tablet in a dustbin once you're done
Right.
with it.
Right.
It goes to a e-recycling center. So you need to look into that dustbin and see what are the products you're using, which you have to throw away a lot. That is the first phase of things you need to change. Then you can move on.
So for someone
Exploring
who
other
writes a lot, it's definitely something, if you can afford, a good thing to go by, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's in concept. Yeah, it does make sense. I myself yet to go, reduce my paper usage. So I'm yet to. I enjoy typing directly. So yeah, that works.
Yeah, I recommend Wacom.
Any other questions?
I'd like to take you back to the first example. I mean, not specifically to the example of razor, reusable razor. Yeah, disposable and reusable razor. I'd like to compare like plastic versus metal. So how do you find a balance? Plastic is introduced into the
Carbon footprint.
yeah, into the market saying
So the carbon footprint of metal and glass is higher, the processing carbon footprint we are talking about over here, versus plastic. The amount of energy used to create a plastic product is much lower compared to generating a product made of steel or glass. Now, here's the thing about it. The steel or glass product you're using will not be thrown away in one day. So the usage of this product is a lifetime, right? A lifetime of a human life. The plastic razors, whereas, will be thrown away on a weekly basis somewhere, sometime, right? So if you actually start comparing that energy levels, then it makes way more sense to stick to materials that can survive a lifetime.
Okay. Got it, Mridula. Thanks.
The frequency at which the energy is being disseminated is also important, not just at that fact. So this is an example of where it is actually true what you're talking about. It's scientifically true that a carbon footprint of metal is higher and plastic is lower. But this incomplete information is something that a petroleum company can misuse to create campaigns to, bring people on their side again if people start turning on plastic.
Great. Thanks.
Hello, Mithila.
Hi.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, my name is Sayus. So I just want to add to the question before. You mentioned about the balloons. So isn't the balloons made of rubber more than plastic?
I can't hear you clearly. Sound far away.
Hello, can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Yeah. But while adding to the question before, isn't the balloons made of rubber more than plastic? You mentioned about balloons, right? Using for
Balloons. Yeah.
using for decorations.
So, are we aware of what happens to rubber when
No.
it's
I just wanted to ask you that actually, because what's the difference between what happens to the rubber and plastic, and how is the amount of decomposability according to that?
It's a classic case of making something without thinking about the end of the product, right? Balloons were made for the specific design of it blowing up like that and looking bouncy, but nobody thought about what to do about these balloons once it goes up. Once it's blasted and once the party's over, we don't know what happens to the balloons. A lot of balloons are released in the air as a sign of respect for something, and then it goes in the oceans and kills some animal. So I think either you come up with if you really want balloons in your life, if someone's really passionate about balloons, I think they'll come up with a way to make it out of a material that is biodegradable and also expands that well, which I doubt. So that will take some time, I guess. Or you can go for these cloth decorations, is what my point was. So it's the material over
Yeah.
here that yeah.
Yeah, I get your point. I was just asking about how we differentiate with rubber and plastic, because the level of combustibility of rubber and plastic, which is more toxic. That's what I was meant to ask.
Yeah, I think you will notice it in the shine of the material. Rubber will be a little more matte, I think,
Yeah.
and plastic will be a lot more shiny, and it will make that plastic noise also, that weird noise. So
Oh, okay.
I think that is how I would try to identify, but plastic is mixed with rubber also to a large extent. So, there's no potential way of knowing. Polymer gets into every place these days. So,
Okay. Thank you.
Hi, Mridula, you can hear me now?
yeah, I can
This is
hear you.
Madhuri. Just had a question regarding packaging. How do
Yeah.
you avoid that in your life in terms of, things which everything comes in plastic, right? So what can we do about that?
So I have that as part of my presentation going forward. I'll talk about some businesses that have followed circular economy, and then I'll move on to answering yours. Okay, so till here nobody has any other doubts, right? If you're curious about like how I do it, that'll come in the presentation ahead. Right. So business ideas that fit into circular economy. Now, a lot of people have doubts when I talk about circular economy, that if you encourage people to keep using what they already have, people are not going to buy enough and the economy is going to crash. So how do you think of business ideas that are actually profitable, exponentially profitable, even under circular economy? So here's an example of a company who decided to make their raw materials a waste material, right? This was textile waste that is thrown away from other countries, from our own country. And what happens to them is they're in like destitute conditions, or even if they're in a good condition, they're all thrown away together in a landfill. And in Haryana, there's a mulching unit that these textiles are sent to, where all the clothes are mulched into like this gray mush of a fiber. And that fiber is used to make stuffings and bed cushions and all of that thing, and it's sold for a very cheap cost to the poor people. Now Chindi found this recycling unit. They started color segregating the mulch so they can get different colors of the yarn, and they started creating thread out of the mulched recycled yarn, and they started crocheting their products. So the advantage of crocheting your product is, even in your production stage, there is no waste created. So they started creating accessories, and they made this whole line of bags and purses and wallets, which was amazing. So this is a perfect example of circular economy, where you're taking a waste material as your raw material, and you're creating monetary value out of it. This is an example of a bulk store. Now someone asked, how do I shop for things zero waste? These are some idealistic situations of bulk stores from all around the world. You won't find such a neat store in India. This example over here, this small image, is an example of a bulk store you might have seen in India. Kirana stores also they're called, and they have bulk grains and all kinds of legumes and grains and rices and everything in bulk. So when I find such a store, what I do is I take my containers, my cloth bags, all of the things that I need to carry to buy these items back home, and I just look around what kind of ingredients is he selling. Now all of those ingredients, if I was buying them in a packaged manner before I discovered this shop, I will switch it to buying it with my cloth bags from this shop. Whatever I couldn't find, I will let it be, and I continue buying that in plastic packaging so far. The genius of this is, the more you look out, the more curious you get, the more resources you look around for near your house, the better you get at living zero waste, because it is all about access. It's not a matter of your discipline. If no one in your area is selling something in bulk and you don't have any other option but to buy that in packaging, you're obviously going to continue creating waste. So biggest misconception I want people to clarify is, your level of perfection does not depend on your discipline. It depends on how far you're willing to research. Loop is an example of a company it was based in USA. And he started a system where he offered existing brands, really well-established existing brands who are selling their products in plastic packaging, he offered them a reusable container design, and he told he will take care of selling the products to the zero waste customers. So now customers can order a box of Loop products. Loop is just the packaging, they're just in charge of the packaging, and they get their same old products in reusable packaging now delivered to them. After it's over, they keep the empty containers in the bag, and it's again collected and given for washing and switched back. So this is a system, it's a subscription fee. So Loop gets, like how Netflix earns money, that's how Loop is earning money. And it's providing a service that's helping people go zero waste. Endlessly profitable, right? If people want to go zero waste. This is an example of a clothes swap. Instead of throwing our clothes away out of boredom, a lot of times we do it out of boredom, not just out of necessity. Instead of throwing it away, can we possibly mend it, fix it, take care of it? If you're bored of something, can we give it away to a friend for whom it will be a new piece of clothing? And we could also stick to buying only secondhand. So that is an idea of a circular economy where, the product, once it's made, it keeps coming back into the loop again and again. An example of this, even this pullover that I bought is secondhand. And, these days we have amazing thrift stores which have amazing finds. You will be surprised to know how many people are keeping clothes in their closet they're never wearing. So creating a reusable value out of it is also boosting the economy. An example, toys, kids grow up. So just for the sake of 3 years or 4 years, why are we buying so many toys? So what do you do about that toys? You make sure it goes to other kids who still haven't grown up that much. And they can use it till it can pass on to another kid. So pre-loved toys should be a concept that should come back again strongly. It already exists in Indian families, but I think if it goes beyond that also, the options would increase and it would be amazing. For Lenco, the service that they provided, that they rent the furniture and they take it back, is an example of circular economy, because it means the same furniture is being used by several houses. So it is optimized for its value, and you're making money out of the same piece of furniture again and again. Rentals are making money out of the same product. So your manufacture cost is cut, and that way you're able to, profit. You're able to gain a huge margin on your profit. So those are some examples of how businesses go zero waste. And today we live in a world where we are aiming for this idealistic circular economy, but at the same time, we have the burden of all the waste that has already been generated from our linear economy. So to bridge that gap for a very long time, we will have to cooperate with the recycling economy, which is we have to be extremely careful about where we are sending our plastics to, where we are sending our end trash to. We should be cleaning it and keeping it. We should be sending it to organizations who do recycle. Unfortunately, depending on which city or area you live in, you don't know whether your authorities are taking care of your waste. It could be getting collected and going to a landfill somewhere, or it could be getting managed and you're not aware of it. So to be on the safe side, what I do is I make sure I personally send it to private recycling companies so that I know that my waste has been taken care of and it's not up for up in the air, that I'm not aware of where my waste goes. So how can you play a role in this? So we need resources to go zero waste at source, right? We need to look for brands. We need to look for companies who are selling products that can help us go zero waste. We have to manage the plastic we that haven't found a solution to. It's difficult to find salt package free. It's difficult to find oil package free. Oil mills are rare now. So we need to learn how to manage the plastic we already are creating. We need to compost wet waste, which does not take any budget, any energy. You can start with a bucket, make a few holes, have a lid, and start composting your wet waste with some dry leaves, etc. And we need to have better understanding of segregation and recycling. For recycling understanding, in a matter of experience, in my opinion, you can still learn this. If you go to a kabadi wala, he will explain you, this is the kind of material we recycle, this is what we don't recycle. So your understanding of materials will increase, which products have multi-layers, which products have single plastic layer. You'll also realize that recycling only happens from a single material. If it's been fused with several materials, it cannot be recycled. Look for stores in your area that sell items loose. I have described this and explained to you guys. So these are some stores near my house where I shop package free. Look for reusable packaging, your sauces, ketchups, soy sauce, everything that can come in, glass jars. So you could opt for those instead, or even if it's plastic bottles, try to reuse it for as long as you can. Request refills at oil mills if you can find one near your house. Taking your own container and requesting refills is a huge part of living zero waste. And this is the boxes in my room, which I have turned into my segregation bins. Each box is meant to go to a certain recycling organization that accepts that kind of waste. And you can here see it's mixed paper. Mixed paper is basically laminated paper, the glossy ones. Tetra Paks is, there's one organization called RUR in Mumbai, where I send it to if once it fills up, and it'll take like a year or so for these boxes to fill up. And you should always clean and put it, because obviously you're storing this waste in your house for such a long time. It shouldn't attract any rodents or insects or anything. So always clean and collect all your waste. Metal and foil, even the foil that I get from, takeaway containers from ordering food, I clean that and I keep the foil. Compostable paper, I can shred this and put it in my compost. Hard plastic from old broken items that I don't know what to do with. Soft plastic is most of the waste that we see in the oceans. So saving soft plastic as well, because I found an organization that accepts it to convert it into polyfuel. It's not the most ideal, but at least we should be managing the waste we have created. This is an example of how I segregate the waste once it comes in my hand. We get a chocolate, we usually just eat it and throw away the wrapper. What I try to do is I separate the materials, I clean it up, and then I segregate it as per the bins that I've allotted. Same example on the right, you can see the metal foil in which takeout food comes. The paper always has one layer of plastic below it, so the shiny foil plastic. I remove that layer, and only that plastic I keep it away. And then the rest can be recycled. Then it's just paper and metal which can be recycled, cleaned. So what about the plastics that I don't know what to do about? I can't even send them for polyfuel. I can't send them for recycling. They are mixed with paper, or they are just in a material that no one will accept. I put it in a huge plastic bottle and I keep stuffing it. The advantage of an eco-brick so far has been some organizations use it to do construction work, but I haven't been able to find such an organization yet. I'm currently on my third eco-brick and it's not occupying too much space in my house, so I don't mind waiting till I find those resources. If I ever find resources for anything and how I manage my waste personally, I always put it up on my website. Now, please note my website name has changed to ulissu.com. You don't have to worry about the entire thing. It just changed recently, so I couldn't update it. But do write www.ulissu.com, and there's a section for waste management where you can click on, and you can click on plastic management. There you have all the resources for how to manage all your plastic waste. Another thing in detail I wanted to discuss was composting. How do we manage our wet waste? We have been used to putting it in a plastic bag, and we have gotten used to giving that to our kachra wala. The wet waste is the most easiest thing to manage, because all you need to do is throw it in mud and let it rot naturally. And it turns into soil, which is again beneficial for future plants to grow. But we do not live in that kind of a world, because many of us don't even have access to a backyard anymore. We live in apartments, high-rise buildings. We do not have access to mud where we can just throw our wet waste and people will find that a nuisance. So what do we do? The most civil and sophisticated thing you can do is bring a compost in your own apartment. I have this compost khamba. I put it in a corner of a balcony behind my bathroom. I have started composting my wet waste in that. You can find composters either from Daily Dump. It's a company that sells composting terracotta units. You'll find it on Amazon. Or you can even take plastic buckets, make holes in that, and learn how to make a DIY compost. You can check out YouTube for that. What do you need to make sure in a compost? Whatever the quantity of wet waste you're throwing in the compost, you should also throw that much amount of dry waste. Dry waste is your leaves, your paper, the kind of material that can absorb the moisture. You should also put that much dry waste. So what that will do is it won't stink, the moisture will balance out, and it will systematically start rotting inside. And eventually in the last, if you can move this hand a little bit, in the last image, you can see there's a bucket of ready compost that I have now after 3 months. And I use that for, either the gardens outside or, to grow my own plants at home. So, yeah, so that's it. That's my webinar. Now you can see this, you can follow this diagram. If you're personally motivated to change your lifestyle, remember that you have to create a system to get addicted to the new habit. You know, it's not going to come easily. It's not going to come naturally for sure. We have been conditioned to live a certain way for a very long time, and it's going to be hard to make all these switches like this. But make sure you're able to sustain the habit rather than just worrying about perfection, right? Expose yourself to people and communities. You can follow me on Instagram. It's ulisu by mridula.com. Sorry, Ulisu by Mridula on Instagram. And you can, if you are in touch with me on Instagram, I can get you in touch with many more accounts like this, which you can follow. And you will realize there's a whole community of people living this way, and you won't feel so alone in your journey anymore. Reach out as much as possible, admit that you need a change in perspective, because a lot of people tend to get stubborn with what they know. Be open to the fact that maybe we don't know everything, and we are here, we are here to learn more. And when you start seeing a variable reward, what will be the variable reward in living zero waste? You will notice that your trash is not filling up anymore. You will slowly start realizing you don't need a dustbin anymore. And that joy of, just the way the system of your house has completely changed, and you don't create any waste, is going to make you feel so good. You'll also have approval from other people in your life, maybe, who are proud of you. So that will make you feel like you want to keep going on this journey. And invest your time in more information in this until it becomes second nature to you. So that's how you would get yourself to change your habits to live more plastic free. Yeah. Any questions? I'm done.
Hi, Mridula. My name is Aniket. So you started with your presentation saying that you are an Instagram blogger, and later on you got into this zero waste lifestyle, and now you have created awareness. You have started spreading awareness.
I was a blogger about zero waste lifestyle itself. Before that I was working full time as a fashion designer.
Okay, all right, great. So my question is, over this period, you might have spread awareness to a lot of people, and there might have been acceptance as well as people might have resisted the idea. So how did you encourage more people to take up the cause that you are promoting?
So I very early on realized that I'm not going to convince people to change their lifestyle. I'm not going to explain myself, waste my energy in any conversation where the person themselves are not curious enough to try it. Right? Is the question coming at me from a place of genuine curiosity, from a place of genuinely wanting to satisfy their intellectual, thirst, or is someone taunting me and asking me to prove myself or try to have a heated debate with me? So when I know the latter, I avoid those conversations because I want to have only productive conversations. I like having conversations which have a consequence at the end of it, a call to action. So you have to navigate yourself around people very carefully when you're changing your lifestyle. The safest thing to say is, I'm trying an experiment, please leave me alone. And then later, if that person is really curious, you can start giving more details. So saving your mental energy is very important in the beginning, because you will personally also feel very frustrated that you're not able to make some changes.
Also, my follow-up question is, many of the people actually they want to take up this kind of lifestyle, but the alternate products that you're suggesting, they come on a higher, yes. So how do people go about it?
That is a matter of access, and that is okay. If you're not able to afford it, if you genuinely have lifestyle where you're already living very minimally, and you're still not able to afford these products, then I would really not recommend them to make this the end all be all of their efforts. There's a lot of other things you can do. Plastic is just one small portion of sustainable living. You can try to buy more local, you can try to grow things in your house as well. You can be a little more conscious. Composting is something anyone can do from anywhere, no matter the budget. So I would ask them to focus on the things they can do rather than silly products that can easily be changed later on.
Now, after the waste management rules that have come up in 2016 and the following amendments, so in almost in every place, the basic segregation is happening. I mean, wet waste is taken care separately, dry waste. The problem with dry waste is it gets mixed, and very few places the segregation is done as it should have been. Now,
here the problem is a lot of Indians still haven't understood the material difference in what is dry waste and what is wet waste. I remember I had volunteered in a waste management team in NH7 concert once, and we had made very clear signs with pictures of the waste as well of what should go in which dustbin, and still people were confused about what they should throw. So the understanding of what should go in wet waste and what should go in dry waste itself is lacking in most of us as consumers. So that's why we are not able to do it. Unfortunately, recycling is a knowledge that you develop as you practice more and more of it. So it requires education from both ends, or else government will have to put a really large campaign in spreading the education about how to segregate, which I don't see happening. So yeah.
Thank you, Mridula. That was inspiring. Truly, you're doing a very good job, and we would like to follow you on Instagram. We'll keep following your blogs as well from now on. Thank you.
Just hold on. I think the link in my presentation was outdated. So this is my website. Sorry, I have send it. So everyone, this is my website. You can head to my website and you can check out all the resources that I use personally. That is something you can follow if you don't have Instagram, and if you have Instagram, follow me at. So the advantage of following me on Instagram is even if something feels inspirational in these 2 hours, there are chances you're going to forget it once this gets over and you move on with your daily life. So if you follow me, you'll stay updated with my stories and things like that, and it's like a daily reminder. So I would really prefer that.
Thank you.
Hi, Mridula. Yeah, you mentioned about you trying to recycle your own waste through private recyclers. Could you? This is the first time I'm actually hearing about someone doing like that. Could you please elaborate on how exactly you do that?
Okay, so if all of you have the link to, let me open my own website. Go to my website and click on, scroll down and click on waste management box.
I think if you could share your screen.
Yeah, I'm trying to find that. Okay, my website is slowing down right now. But yeah, on my website, if you scroll down, there are different boxes. Okay, there's self-care, waste management, fashion, food, travel, lifestyle, like different categories like that. Go to waste management. In that, I have listed out all the details about how I segregate, how I prioritize my segregation, and the links to every organization that could potentially help you in recycling. What they'll just accept your courier donations of the material cleaned and recycled. And that's how it will work.
It's via courier, you can send it to them. Okay, that's a great thing.
Yes, so I'm choosing to send it via courier because I want to take that extra effort. Currently, there's no systematic platform for collection, sending this across. Maybe that's something I hope to do in future as well. But yeah, these are the organizations. The problem with them right now is they do not have the money for marketing and spreading the word for themselves, because they get so busy with the operations, and most people look at this like NGO work, so they don't get a lot of money as well. If it was systematically taken up as a brand, as a product, as a serious company, I think they would be able to push services to more people, their private services. Till then, it's up to people like us who are self-motivated to go zero waste to really reach out to them and help spread word for them.
Thank you so much, Mridula.
Hi, Mridula. This is Ritushri here. Very nice to know the initiatives you have taken. I just want to ask, is there any way you can motivate the housing society to follow this?
Yes.
As you rightly said, people in Mumbai, for example, living in apartments, we don't have access to such backyard. But most of the, at least couple of housing societies do have their landscaping gardens, everything. So
Yeah.
we cannot make it something for the industry to follow. But have you taken any initiative to link with these housing societies to follow such norms?
Yeah, so I personally haven't done it yet. My personal services include webinars like this, spreading the idea, teaching people about the concept, and them in touch with organizations who are already doing everything you mentioned. So if you look at dailydump.org, I sent that link to everyone on chat right now. Click on that and check out this website. They have been doing exactly what you're talking about, going to apartment systems and offering them compost services for the entire apartment, right? And that also entails the same thing. They have to sit down, they have to do a demo to everyone, they have to do a presentation to all the family members, they have to teach people how to segregate, they have to do all of that just to set up their product. So a lot of people are doing that. I have personally been doing the job of a drill PR system, you could say. I've just been highlighting these companies as much as possible, because people who come to me are someone who has heard of this concept for the first time, or usually they're introduced to it for the first time. So they are personally motivated to get in touch with organizations. So I make sure I'm the middleman who is able to spread the word.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Check out Daily Dump, and if you want to do something in your apartment system personally, wherever you guys are living, definitely call them, and they can help you out. Yeah, and you will be able to make your entire apartment go, at least cut out 50% of the wet waste that is being generated.
Okay, nice to know that.
Yeah.
Mridula, does Ullisu have some meaning?
It's Kannada word for to save.
To save. Oh.
Yeah, it's my mother tongue. That's why I said Ullisu.
Participants, please do check the website of Mridula. It has got this very interesting concept of mapping. So it has got India map, and all the stores which are like refilling stores are actually mapped on the map.
So the map will only work if you guys contribute to it, which is if you're lucky enough to live in an area where the map already has a few pins and contributions, good for you. But if you're in an area where it doesn't show many pins near your house, please do participate. Walk around your neighborhood, find stores, send me the details in email. I have sent the entire process on my website as well. And we can pin more stores, we can help more people go zero waste. So it's a very collective project. It's not going to happen under me or by me alone. So I would love your contribution if you're interested.
Sure, Mridula, we'll do that. Do we have any more questions from the participants?
Yeah, Mridula, just wanted to ask you, you hadn't touched upon sanitary products. I'm not sure if you actually kept it out of the call, but I would like you to highlight that, because I use a menstrual cup, and this is a good platform to actually talk about it.
Yeah, definitely. So usually I keep it out because I have shown this presentation to 50 and 60-year-old men in a government office. So that is the reason I think this one was edited out. But yes, I forgot to mention menstrual products are another big example. The disposable sanitary napkins that we've been using from Whisper, Stay Free, Ultra, everyone who is aware of that, they have layers of plastic in them. They do not biodegrade. And no matter how much they say this is biodegradable, if a sanitary napkin has a glue facing end to stick to your underwear, it means it has a layer of plastic. Otherwise, the glue would never stay on something that is pure cotton. So that is the reason sanitary napkins are dangerous. These are being picked with bare hands from rack pickers and everyone. It is harmful. It is disgusting. So there are alternative products like the menstrual cup. Cup is a silicone product which is to be squeezed and inserted, and it collects all the blood and it does not rot inside your body. So that is also hygienic for you. And you need to sterilize before use in boiling water, like how you sterilize your baby pacifiers. Only once before every cycle. That is how a cup is used. And you also have cloth pads, which you use, you wash and you sterilize under sunlight. That's very strict. And you can use cloth pads also endlessly. A lot of people have initial shock of how can we make this switch, because it sounds unhygienic. But we have to remember the times we are living in. We are much more liberated. We are much more open to discussing topics like periods now. And, in our parents and grandparents' generation, when they were using reusable cloths and it was unhygienic, it was because they had to hide it from their family, because they had to do it in secrecy, so they would not be able to clean it that well and things like that. So chances of risk, contamination was higher back then. Now it is completely safe. And now products are being designed in a way that it's easy to wash, easy to use, etc. So that is a major switch I would encourage any human being who menstruates to make.
Mridula, Ishani this side. Regarding menstrual, like the sanitary napkins, there are several brands coming up with bamboo-based sanitary pads, but they do have a plastic covering on the other end. So,
so this is a classic case of I want to make money, but at the same time, I want you to reduce your guilt by paying me extra money for this. Right? So the brands who are doing this, also think about it. It doesn't solve the landfill problem. It is not rotting in your landfill that quickly. It's taking months, and people are menstruating at the rate of every month, right? So something that needs to be thrown away every month should also be developed in a way that it rots within a month, in my opinion. You cannot make a disposable product that says that it biodegrades in 8 months, 6 months. Just keep watching it. No one's going to keep watching their, disposable pads. So do not fall for them, even if they say it's made of bamboo, even if they say it's made of anything. I would encourage you to save your money, stick to your disposable pads while you're trying to work with the idea of how can I switch to reusables. I understand the shift is difficult, but it is possible. And I'd much rather you spend your money on that shift rather than on daily disposables.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. So tampon is, again, it's disposable. So it's the same problem as sanitary pads. Yeah. And if you want support groups, you want to hear from other women reviews about how, it's to use these things, you can always join support calls. You can register for Join the Tribe on my website. And whenever there's a topic about this, you can join that video call and we can discuss all of that in detail.
Hi, Mridula and Dinesh. This question is to both of you. I really like the idea of reducing the use of single-use plastics like toothbrush or even earbuds, all these things which can take a small step at a time to reduce the plastic usage. My only thing is that while Mridula is trying to focus on the change of consumer behavior, the industry, we probably need something more concrete for the industry to change. For example, the leading brands like Colgate or who makes this toothbrush, is it possible to somehow influence the regulation so that they change their production process from plastic to something which is biodegradable, compostable, whatever, which is good for the nature? So how about the environmental regulations acting on this? So consumer approach is one part, but it will take a long time because, to be very honest, the reason the entire nation.
It is not taking a long time. So Colgate and everyone is already aware of these trends that are happening now. They know it's the next thing. People who live this way are very passionate about the way they live. So it even rubs off. People are watching you live like this and they also get the idea quickly. The problem is in logistics. Imagine you're a brand who has already set up everything, who already has booked an order of these many packaging for the next set of your, manufacturing of your toothbrushes. And you're suddenly being told that all of this is bad for the environment and people don't want to buy it anymore. And it becomes difficult as a brand that is already established to again change everything from raw materials till the end product. Okay. So logistics is an issue that is slowing down the big brands. Another thing that's slowing down the big brands is they just want an assurity that people will buy these products if they launch them. They don't have assurity right now. That unfortunately falls on demand and supply of a market, and that unfortunately again falls on the consumer choices. So even in the stock market, there are people who are invested in these companies that are sitting and waiting and thinking, okay, when will the consumers change their habits? So there are some things that policy will not change because this is purely based on market trends. They are trying to ban plastic. The at max what a policy can do is encourage companies to use biodegradable plastic. They cannot encourage them to quit plastic, unfortunately.
Yeah, and on the biodegradable plastic, I think Dinesh, in the last question and answer session, you had clearly mentioned that there are no such regulations because all plastic are biodegradable. It's a matter of time, right? So this looks to be a kind of,
it's
a
misleading
kind of a
also,
loop.
Yeah, so a lot of us think compostable and biodegradable means the same thing. It doesn't. Plastic
It doesn't, exactly.
into smaller particles of plastic. It does not biodegrade mud. Okay. Compostable is it turns into mud. It literally turns back into the nature of where it came from. So that's the difference between biodegradable and compostable. But when we see biodegradable, we see a green color, we see a leaf, we think, oh, this is going back into the nature. So, we are being conditioned with misinformation, I feel, or the lack of information, not even, on purpose. So we have to be careful from that, and we have to steer clear of looking at anything and saying this is the perfect answer. There could be flaws in any of the systems. We have to understand personally what works for us, what are the results we are seeing, and just keep going on that as a consumer.
Yeah, so the other point on the same line is the reason the smaller sachets are so popular today is also because of the economy, because suddenly someone to buy a big backpack of say 2 kilo will cost say $200, whereas a small sachet will be 2 rupees. So that's why these sachets are so popular. So this is nothing, I mean, okay, the industry is taking the opportunity of it, but it's basically the mindset and the affordability equation. So yes, what you are saying is probably applicable.
This is one of the areas where capitalism can actually help sometimes. If you have a capitalism operating among conscious consumers who are creating a competition between brands for products that are helping the environment, then the competition in capitalism becomes about who can help the environment more. So this is where a healthy capitalism can actually fix our problem much faster than a mandated government policy by a person who is not able to fully decide what is sustainable. So I feel this will, the best way this change can happen is through aware consumers.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Mridula, one more thing, Aniket here.
Yeah.
So my question is, like Dinesh mentioned that you're working on a map project wherein we can actually give our own inputs, contribute. So what are the other ongoing projects wherein, let's say if we want to create a pressure point on any particular big brand or a particular group, so is there any ongoing project or ongoing work that you're working on which you need any kind of support, or let's say, or which we can contribute?
So right now, one of the very simple objectives with my Instagram page has been to grow the following as much as possible, because brands have started approaching me to promote their products, right? So what can happen if I have a higher following is I can have a leverage to tell these brands that I will not promote your product unless you offer a zero waste packaging for the consumers who come from my page. So I want to use that influencer leverage to actually help brands, even if they don't want to change to a zero waste brand, they can at least keep an option of packaging for consumers who want to go zero waste. I want to at least create that option on the menu, like when you go to a restaurant, you have the choice between veg and non-veg at least, so you can opt out if you don't want to participate in something. Right now, a big problem for zero waste consumers is they are not able to enjoy several products simply because of the packaging. So if a brand can offer an option of zero waste packaging at an extra fee or whatever, at least it won't be a very impossible idea in people's head once that normalizes in our market. So that is an objective. So please spread the word of my page as to as many people as possible. Every person you're spreading my page to is one person who can potentially turn zero waste consumer himself in the future. So yeah, that would be my very basic way you can help me right now. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, I guess that's the questions, Mridula. Mridula, you've been always inspiring, all your videos on Insta are kind of very inspiring. I request all the participants to please go on the Insta page of Mridula. It has got a lot of videos. I mean, starting from sustainable livelihoods to sustainable, there is this very interesting video of reducing your cloth consumption. I mean, your apparel consumption as well. Very interesting video. Yeah, draping videos, some draping videos.
That was just an extreme example, like an experiment. I was living for 20 days. So my suggestion is not that everyone should start wearing drapes, but do explore that because you'll find many more options in your wardrobe and you'll realize, yeah, choices. We have plenty of variety. We don't need to buy out every solution whenever we are coming across a problem.
Exactly, Mridula. And there's this concept of healthy capitalism that's very, very new to me. Thank you so much for that.
Yeah. Do not disregard any ism without understanding its benefits, and find a way to incorporate those benefits in your own ideal as well, is my suggestion.
Exactly, Mridula. So I guess that's what the questions, Mridula. If at all we have any more questions from the participants, we'll write to you. Atin, do you want to add something? We have our director of the program, Mr. Atin, with us. If you can say a few words, Atin.
Right. Okay. Thank you so much, Mridula, for the excellent presentation and all the answering all the questions that our participants had. In fact, I got to learn so many things that I didn't know, to be very honest with you. So this is how I basically, by reaching out to people like you, we were basically striving to, get to the ground realities of, and in your presentations, you did highlight a lot of issues where practically we are being fooled by the corporates. We are being fooled by the way these products are being branded, the way they are being marketed. So yeah, I mean, it was a great learning, and on behalf of CSC, I mean, I would look forward to stay in touch with you even in our, in future to have more partnership like this, because we also have a specific initiative called the Zero Waste, and we would like to integrate learnings from you into our project to benefit the people at large. And so thank you so much. I mean, it was an excellent session, I guess. And I would request Dinesh to share the recorded version for our participants though who couldn't be with us in person, so that they can enjoy these beautiful sessions later and keep it for the future to refer whosoever they want to share this with. Thank you so much, Bidul. Thanks again.
Thank you so much for inviting me. And yes, if you need any help with constructing a syllabus for zero waste living, you can feel free to reach out to me because I'm working on a book as well. Yeah, I will be able to help you in every way possible because I'm already doing that research here myself.
Excellent. Excellent. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Mridula. Thank you for your time. Thank you.
Thank you.